Hi, this is Greg Hughes from 90-Second Website Builder. I'd like to give you an overview of the software. I call this kind of a bird's eye view because it's kind of an overall view of the workspace. You may or may not know that you can actually customize how you work with 90-Second Website Builder and lay out the tools the way you want them. So you're looking at the way I lay out my tools, and it's mostly what the software defaults to, but you can change that. There's basically 4 or 5 sections of the workspace, and we'll go over each one briefly. The first section would be the top section we call the ribbon menu, and this is where all of the menu bar areas are stored, and we'll talk about these in a minute. And of course, there's videos about some of these specific tools elsewhere. This particular video is just going to be an overview. The other section are the palettes, or those little windows you see on either side of the screen. In my case right now, I have a Toolbox Palette, the Object Manager, and if I move the camera down a little bit, you can see I have a third palette down here called Blocks, something new to version 12. And on the other side of the screen, I'll move the camera over there. On the right side, I have another palette, the Site Manager, and down below that, the Properties Manager. And again, these can be moved around or hidden completely from view if you don't want to see them. And I'll show you how that works in just a second. The other section of the workspace, besides the ribbon menu and the palettes on either side, is this big white area we call the canvas. This is the part of the software where you'll obviously be dragging and dropping things onto this page to design your website. And then at the very bottom, there's a few other things that you'll notice. There's a quick way to access the responsive design tools. Again, we'll talk about that in another video. And all the way over to the right-hand side at the very bottom, a quick way to zoom in on your work if you want to do that. And as is the case with almost everything, there's more than one way to get to a particular feature or function in this software, just to make it as easy as possible, so you have a lot of choices on how you work with it. I want to start by talking about the use of these palettes on the side here, because these are extremely customizable. Right now, like I said, you can see I have a Toolbox palette right here, which is the most common palette. That's where you grab all of the tools that you'll use to design your website with. So you're ready to put an image on the canvas, you would go to the toolbox and grab the image tool and put your image out here. Same for text and hundreds of other tools. But the view of the palette itself can be customized for your convenience. For example, each of these can be undocked from their position and used as floating palettes. Let me show you what I mean. If you grab the top of a palette and drag it, you can see that I can move it into place anywhere on the screen if I just want to work with it as what's called a floating palette. I can float it around and drag it into position, any position I want to. If I want to dock it, which is where it just was, I can dock it into just about any position too. You'll notice when I click and drag, you'll see these little blue boxes that show up all over the screen, some out here in the center and some over here on the side. If I move my pointer, and I'm clicking and dragging, by the way, if I were to move my pointer into one of these boxes, for example, this one, it tells me that I could dock my toolbox across the top of the page like this. And here's my toolbox, if that's where I wanted it to live. And if I go back and grab it again, and again, I'm just pointing, clicking, and dragging, I can put it into another docked position. I'll grab this one, or I could grab this one, and you can see I get a little highlight of where it's going to be docked. If we go all the way over to the edge of the screen here, you can see we get another set of these, and I'm going to put it back where it was, which is right here, and let go. And now I've just redocked it back into place. So this is true for all of the palettes, both the ones on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. You can move them around. You can also shrink them without moving them out of place. Sometimes I do this a lot if I just want to move these out of the way so I can see a bigger version of the toolbox. Or if I want to really work with my object manager, I might stretch it up here so I can see it. You can also completely hide them, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So first of all, understand that if you're working with the software and for some reason a palette has disappeared, it's probably because you clicked this little X in the corner, because that's what makes it go away. If I click this, I only have a properties palette here. My site manager's gone, but I'm going to show you how to get that back in just a second, which brings us to the ribbon menu across the top. So this menu or this set of menus actually, is broken up into categories, and so we'll broadly talk about which each one stands for. The home section is going to be more broad functionality for the software, common things like cut, copy, and paste, things you'd be used to using in any Windows application. Also, big things like previewing the page or publishing the site, all of that can be reached from the home section. Undo, redo, find, and replace. These are great tools that are pretty generic to Windows operations. There's also some things here that have to do with the properties of the project and some broader things like events, which we'll talk about in other videos. The insert section of this ribbon menu is basically another way of looking at the toolbox we just talked about. So while the toolbox lists this vertical sort of scrolling box of tools, the insert menu gives you another visual on how to access those same tools. It's a little more graphic because it has icons and drop downs and little quick tip windows. For example, if I click on drawing, I can pick any of the drawing tools from here. And so that particular menu is just another way of getting to the tools. The page menu does just what you think it would. It refers to things that have to do with the particular page you're working on as opposed to the whole website. So this is where you could add a new page, import a page from another project, find a page within the project that you want to edit, rename, clone pages, set the background for a page, see the properties of a page. If you want to look at the HTML or change it or add to the HTML, you can do that here. Or if you want to affect all of the pages on the whole site, you would do that with the site properties, etc. These all have to do with issues of the page or pages themselves. A good example of that is Google Analytics. That's something that has to live on the page you want to analyze in Google. So you would add Google Analytics to whatever pages in 90-Second Website Builder you want to track. Also, responsive design is page specific. We make responsive web pages with the software, and so that lives under the page menu. And again, we'll talk about some of these more specifically in detailed videos. The view menu is where we're going with these palettes. Remember I said you could turn the palettes on and off. Well, a few minutes ago, over here, I turned off the Site Manager palette and it doesn't show. And you can see under the view menu here, it's not toggled on anymore. If I check this box and we go back, you can see there it came back. This is how you turn on and off those palettes. So if we want to turn off the toolbox, we can check this box. You can see it goes away. Clicking it makes it come back. So just be aware, if you happen to close a toolbox or a palette, you can also go to the view menu and toggle it back on. And currently there are about 7 different palettes you can have, and you can show the ones you want to show. So you can make your workspace work for you. The main point of the view menu is for you to customize your workflow or your workspace. This doesn't have to do with any particular web page you're designing or the website itself, but rather the tools you're using to design the website. This is your workspace. So if you would rather look at this in easy mode allows you to turn off some of the tools that are maybe more advanced and maybe are intimidating because there's just so many options. You can turn on easy mode for fewer things to look at. I like to have mine on because I want to see all the tools that I have access to. You can also get rid of all the distractions and click on full screen mode and just be working with the canvas as we are right here. We made everything disappear so that we could just look at our work. If that's something you prefer, you can do that. And then you can always toggle back to where you were. So this is the view menu we're talking about, and it helps us lay out our work. And I won't go through all of these right now, but you can imagine all of the things you can do between adding grids and guide settings. These are rulers down here, which I have showing, and because it's checked. And I can also snap objects to the rulers, snap objects to guides. Again, this has to do with how you work with the software, not necessarily what shows up on the finished page. Again, another place to zoom in and out of the work, which sometimes is really handy when you're working with some intricate images. The arrange menu has to do with specific objects that are on the page. While the page menu talks about the page, the web page itself, and the view menu talks about the tools we're using to create these pages, the arrange menu is specifically about objects on the page. It allows us to move them and align them, distribute them evenly, vertically. There's a video about using the arrange tools, and it's really handy when you're working with a lot of objects or images or text or whatever, and you want things to line up more appropriately. Also, you can move things from front to back so you don't have the wrong object covering something that you don't want covered. That's what the Arrange menu does. It works with specific objects. Objects can be rotated in different directions. They can be grouped or merged into one object. They can be locked down so you don't accidentally bump into them as you're working and things like that. So this is all about the objects on the page. When we get to the Tools menu, now this is a unique set of features built into 90-Second Website Builder that are kind of like applications all their own. Think of these as sort of mini apps within the application of 90-Second Website Builder, because these give you things like the Animation Manager. That in and of itself is a whole tool that you can work with to create animations. The Backup Manager, that's where you handle the backing up of your project files and storing them on your computer. The Extension Manager, the way you install third-party extensions for your software, how to manage themes, and so on. These tools are going to be, again, more broad. They aren't specific to any one page or any one object. They're actually how you would manage all of your projects, even within your computer. Under this menu, probably the most common feature under the Tools menu is the Options menu. And I'll actually bring that one up because this one you'll probably use a lot. You can set a lot of important configurations in this menu, and so you'll want to know where this is. And again, we'll go into some of the details of this in another video because there's obviously a lot to cover. Let's go to the Help menu, and you'll see just what you would think, multiple ways to get help. You can go to our website and create a support ticket. You can watch the video tutorials like you are right now. You can download the user's manual. But there's also something that you may not know, and that is there's a help guide built into the software. And when you click that button, it brings up a searchable help system that kind of works like an encyclopedia. You can look up articles, you can search for terms, and find the help that you need in any particular topic with 90-Second Website Builder. And then also, finally, in the ribbon menu, there's something up here that's fairly new. Starting with version 12, you can start typing in key phrases to find a tool if you're not sure where it is. For example, I want to maybe do some navigation and I want to look for some kind of a menu tool. If I start to type in the word navigation, it's going to help me find some possible things I might be looking for. It's kind of like a little search tool to find a specific feature that you may need to work with. So that's kind of the bird's eye view or the overview of the software. In each of the video tutorials, we'll go into more detail into some of these specifics, but this at least gives you an idea that when you first open the software, before you start making websites or building things, you're going to kind of want to get a feel for where things are. You may even want to move some things around, turn some things off, turn some things on, and get it to where you like to work with it. And as you work with the software, you'll learn what works best for you so that you can build your websites in this great software called 90-Second Website Builder.